The campus belle didn't want to attend the same university as me. And my childhood friend tricked me into changing my application from Peking University to Hong Kong University. By the time I realized the truth, the application system had already closed. I angrily confronted my childhood friend. But he could only smile bitterly. You two never got along. And you know that. After graduation, you can go back to Beijing to work. I'll wait for you here. I was shocked and heartbroken. It turned out that 15 years of friendship and my future couldn't compete with the smile of a beautiful woman. So this time, I didn't argue. I turned around, packed my bags, and headed south alone. What he didn't know was that for years, or even longer, from now, I would never return to Beijing. The moment I heard what Julian said, it felt as though a bucket of ice water had been poured over me, chilling me to the bone. No wonder. All day long, Julian's gaze had seemed so evasive. After some prodding, he admitted that he'd lied to me and gave the ridiculous explanation above. But by the time I found out, the college application system had already closed, and there was no way to fix it. I still couldn't believe it. And I couldn't help but ask again, my voice shaking with anger. Why couldn't Luna just change her own application if she didn't want to be at the same school as me? If she didn't want to leave Beijing, there were at least dozens of universities she could apply to. Why did she have to trick me into applying out of town? Julian froze for a moment. Then, let out a lull sigh. With the habit of comforting me, reached out to pat my head, but for the first time, I turned my head away, rejecting him. He pulled his hand back awkwardly, adding, Claire, don't make a fuss. Everyone knows that Luna's dream has always been to go to Peking University. She could never give that up. Why do you have to keep making things hard for her? You're not even really set on Peking University, are you? I almost laughed at his words. Was Peking University her family's school? Was it only accepting one student this year? I fought the urge to shout. The score I worked my ass off for. The one I earned with my blood and sweat. Why can't I apply to Peking University? She has the nerve to change her application. So let her. Why can't she get Peking University to only admit her? And not let anyone else apply? Julian frowned, his face growing darker. Claire, stop being so unreasonable. She's just trying to be considerate. Peking University is so small. And she's worried about running into you. Why not just let her have it? He paused. Then continued. Besides, she applied to Peking University first. You've been thinking about this for days. So it's not like you're dead set on it. Right? But Luna has no other options. She only applied to that one school. Don't you think it's cruel to block her chance at university? My body shook with anger. And my voice trembled as I replied. I hesitated because I was weighing my options. What kind of nonsense is this? Who would pass up a chance at Peking University if they got in? I glared at him. A surge of resentment flooding through me. And you, Julian. I couldn't finish. The betrayal ran too deep. The past 2 years had been a mess ever since Luna came into our lives. She had disrupted the quiet routine Julian and I had shared for so long. The phrase Julian used most often was, you need to be more understanding of Luna. Luna's new to our class and doesn't have many friends. Can't you let her be? Luna's scared of walking home alone after evening study. Can't you just walk with her for a bit? Luna didn't understand this question. So can't you just give her your seat for one evening study session? I didn't get it. Luna had plenty of friends around her. And whenever I walked past the hallway, I could feel the glares from her little clique. She had a personal driver who picked her up every day. She didn't even need to walk to school. Her desk mate didn't like me either. And I often had to sit awkwardly with my best friend at her desk, because Luna would take my spot during evening study. But whenever I pointed these things out, Julian just thought I was being petty. His tone shifted from casual to serious. And eventually, he even seemed frustrated with me. Claire, I'm not yours to possess. Stop being so jealous. As time went on, I began to doubt myself. Maybe I was just too sensitive. Julian, yucksite, as the class monitor, was just trying to help his classmates. Right? But now, I had to give up my dream school for some bizarre reason. And that was the last straw. Was my effort My dream. Not worth respecting? I was beyond disappointed. I didn't look at Julian again. Didn't say another word to him. I turned and left the school. 3 tears wouldn't stop flowing all the way home. I'd known Julian for 15 years. But never had I imagined that one day he would lie to me for someone else, especially not when it came to something so important to my future. My phone suddenly buzzed. It was my best friend, Chloe, cutting fulfilled my sigh, sending a screen full of question marks. Why did Julian announce his relationship with the school beauty? My heart skipped a beat. And before I could process it, she sent me a screenshot of Luna's post. The time was 15 minutes ago. Right when the application system closed. The only dream school I've had since I was 10 is finally coming true. And someone's accompanying me through it despite all odds. Shy. The post had her selfie and 2 screenshots of her application form. Although one of them was blurred, I could immediately tell from the major she'd applied to that it was Julian's. This ambiguous post, which seemed like an unofficial announcement, was flooded with well wishes in the comments. Julian had even liked it. So, I had always been the extra one. A painful knot twisted in my chest. I couldn't help but think back to last night. Julian had come to me suddenly, begging me to secretly change our applications and apply to universities far away. He said he wanted to rebel for once. Go as far as he could, and escape his parents' control. At the time, I was torn, rejecting him several times. Peking University had always been my dream school. But more than that, my family's situation was special, and staying local would relieve some of the pressure at home. I had never seriously considered going away for college. But last night, Julian seemed set on it. And when I didn't agree, he wouldn't let go of my hand. Unable to resist his pleading, his burning eyes, I eventually gave in. Julian's name appeared on every page of my diary, the one where I kept my teenage secrets. He was the one I had secretly liked for so long. Even now, whenever I hear someone mention his name, my heart skips a beat and dull entirely. To think we'd be apart for years. I couldn't bear it. Especially that night on my 18th birthday. He was half drunk under the moonlight, holding me tightly on the lawn, refusing to go home, insisting I stay and watch the stars with him. In the midst of it all, he wouldn't let me refuse. And took my first kiss. The promises he whispered in my ear then. Every word still clear in my mind. Like it was yesterday. Claire. Let's stay together. Always. Let's go to college together. Work together. Get married. And never be apart for a lifetime. At that moment, I was so overjoyed my heart almost leapt out of my chest. I foolishly thought that my secret love had finally come true. I counted the days until college, eager to be with him openly. Now, looking back, I realize I was just a deluded fool. For such an absurd reason, I became the one who was quietly cast aside. He wanted me to let go. Not just of Peking University. Not just of Beijing. But of him altogether. I would give it all up for her. Before I knew it, I had arrived at the KED entrance. Mom was nearby, selling skewers. I quickly wiped away my tears. Took a moment to compose myself around the corner. And only approached her when I was sure no one would notice I had been crying. When Mom saw me, she was momentarily surprised. But then started scolding. Why are you here? Didn't I tell you to go home after filling out your college applications and rest? Why are you helping out again? I can handle it myself. Don't worry about it. I smiled, walked over, put on an apron, washed my hands, and started helping. It's okay, Mom. I've had a few days of rest after the exams. I figured I might as well help out before school starts. I suddenly trailed off. A weight pressed on my chest, making it hard to breathe, and my fingers instinctively tight and around the cloth I was holding. How was I going to tell her about changing my university choices? Because of my blind love, I had carelessly chosen to study far away. For the next 4 years. I wouldn't be able to help her with the stall or care for Grandme anymore. Not to mention the tuition and living expenses. There were more than double those here. Even with a partial scholarship, it wouldn't be enough. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. Since Dad's business went bankrupt 5 years ago, and he left us after swallowing a whole bottle of sleeping pills. Mom, who had lived a comfortable life at home for so long, had put her heart into running this barbecue stall. She worked day and night, struggling to support me through junior and senior high, while also taking care of Grandma, who had trouble moving. Mom's once thick black hair now showed signs of graying. And here I was, so thoughtless. My mind spun in confusion, the guilt deeper than ever. How could I have been so impulsive and swayed by Julian? I really deserve this. Lost in my thoughts, my phone suddenly buzzed a few times. Julian's message popped up. Still angry? Don't forget about the party tonight. Afterward, we can talk properly? I pressed the screen off, not replying. Maybe he wouldn't give up without a response. As the message notifications kept ringing, I numbly skewered the meat on the grill, trying to ignore it. Mom, noticing, smiled and advised me. Is Julian asking you out? You should go if he is. I heard Peking University has a heavy workload. You should take advantage of the summer vacation before school starts. If you need money, I can send it to you. You've been accepted into Peking University. No matter what, your dad would be proud of you. She continued, beaming. Do you know? The whole neighborhood envies your mom. I finally made it. I'm proud of you. Mom was so pleased she reached for her phone. I quickly wiped my hands and stopped her. The phone rang again, just then. Before I could press it off, she had already answered it and shoved the phone to my ear. On the other end, Julian's voice sounded clear and calm. Are you still angry, you little grump? You aren't even replying to my messages now. Do you want to cut ties with me? When I didn't respond, he sighed and continued. All right, miss. I know I didn't handle things well, but you have to give me a chance to make it up to you. And didn't you forget? Afon's birthday tonight. You promised to help set up the surprise for him, remember? I cut him off coldly. I've got other things to do. I'm not coming. Usually, if Julian was the one to apologize, I'd quickly back down. But this time, I clearly didn't want to give him that chance. Julian seemed annoyed too. Claire, this is pointless. No matter how mad we are, we agreed to help out tonight. We can't just leave them hanging. If you're still upset, Luna will be there too. I'll bring her over and apologize to you in person. About the university choice. He was about to say more, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I hung up. Blocked him. Finally, having fulfilled Raib's peace and quiet. Luckily, Mom was busy and didn't notice our conversation, or she'd probably asked me about it endlessly. I put my phone on silent and continued scouring the meat. Not making things worse was better for everyone. In the sweltering summer heat, the business was always booming at night. I worked through the night, so busy I couldn't even think straight. Before I knew it, it was already past midnight. The new charcoal we had wasn't catching fire properly. No matter what I tried, I was getting desperate, fanning the coals and blowing at them. But nothing worked. Just as I was about to give up, a surprised female voice suddenly called from nearby. Claire? I lifted my head, drenched in sweat, and through the smoke, I saw Luna, her face full of surprise. And beside her, Julian stood with his brow furrowed. The rest of the group was standing farther back, eyeing us curiously. They were all dressed up, looking like they had just come from KTV. Claire, it really is you. I knew it was you. Julian didn't believe me and insisted we come over. I've heard your mom sell skewers, but I didn't expect to run into you here. Luna seemed genuinely happy. After a quick greeting, she turned and waved to the others to join her. Julian stood there, giving me a cold glance before speaking up. So, Claire, you don't reply to my messages. Don't answer my calls. Block me. You'd rather stand here grilling skewers for a few bucks than come inside and give me a little face? I didn't answer, keeping my head down and fanning the fire. The group of men and women had already walked up, their voices clearly carrying. So, that's Claire? Who's Claire? That girl. Always trailing behind Julian. Oh. Their comments, hadn't felt my sigh. laced with meaning, were suddenly interrupted by Luna's loud suggestion. Hey, aren't you all hungry? Why don't we have some late-night snacks here instead? Just consider it as helping Claire's family out. They're struggling a bit. And we're kind of sponsoring her college expenses. I see the business is going well. So the food shouldn't be too bad, right? Luna, with her flawless makeup, was wearing a strapless mini skirt that accentuated her subtly mature yet youthful sexiness. As she spoke, her expensive eyeshadow glittered, and she looked unusually delicate and adorable. In stark contrast, I was covered in grease, my hands dirty, and my clothes stained with black carbon. It was a cruel comparison. At the age of 18, our lives had taken completely different paths. I had known that for a long time. But in this moment, with the person I had liked for so long in front of me, I felt the urge to run away in embarrassment. I turned away, continuing with the task at hand, hoping to avoid their scrutinizing glances. But my mother cheerfully came over to greet them. Claire, are these all your classmates? Julian's here too? Kids, come sit down. And if you want anything, feel free to order. Tonight, Auntie's treating. With that, my mother hurriedly moved the tables, cleaning them carefully before arranging them together. Julian quickly went over to help her with the tables. At that moment, a few voices from the crowd could be heard gossiping. Eating here? Isn't it too unsanitary? Yuck, yucko. It's all greasy. Who knows which construction worker from a village has sat on these chairs? Just thinking about it makes me feel gross. Luna, look at the meat. This isn't zombie meat. Is it? Is this really something a person can eat? I never eat street food. My mother froze as she wiped the chairs. Julian, hearing the comments, looked displeased and turned to warn them. Let's keep the comments down. Sandra's very particular about hygiene. And she's a great cook. The gossipers fell silent, no longer saying anything. I had been furious for a while now. I quickly walked over and pulled my mother away, not allowing her to continue. Turning to Luna and her friends, I said, our family has always kept things clean. And our customers are regular folks, nothing like your wealthy families. Please, noble young masters and young ladies, go somewhere else and avoid getting grease on yourselves. Luna immediately started to explain, looking somewhat aggrieved. No, Claire. I really wanted to help you and looked after your family's business. My friends were just being blunt. They didn't mean any harm. Julian's face grew even darker. Claire. They didn't mean it like that. Please don't misinterpret it with sarcasm. Stop overthinking. It's just that people don't usually eat this kind of street food. They're used to fancy restaurants. No offense meant. I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I simply pointed to the road, urging them to leave. We, the common folk, need to run a business. If you're not going to buy anything, please don't block our stall. My mother said nothing more, awkwardly standing there. Julian stared at me for a while, silent with anger, before turning to walk away. The others followed him, some pinching their noses in distaste as they left. Luna was the last to leave the group. After walking a few steps, she turned back and stood in front of me. Feigning gratitude, she said, Claire, for both emotional and logical reasons, I should thank you for stepping aside to give me space for my perfect college life. HKU is a great school too. Julian and I spent a lot of time picking it out for you. Actually, if you didn't always look at me with so much hostility, I wouldn't have needed Julian's help for this. I hadn't expected her to suddenly bring up the application, and immediately turned to look at my mother. Sure enough, in an instant, my mother's face went as white as paper. Luna quickly realized she had said the wrong thing, turning and swiftly walking away. My mother, almost unable to stand, seemed momentarily stunned. I hurried to support her, my tears welling up instantly. Through my sobs, I cried out, Mom, I'm so sorry. I foolishly changed my first choice to HKU. I can't get into Peking University anymore. I didn't dare tell you. If you want, I can repeat a year and try again for Peking University next year. I promise I'll give it my all. My mother seemed truly startled. She was dazed for a long time before she came to and tried to force a smile. It's okay, sweetie. When I heard Luna say that, it scared me a little. I thought you made a mistake in your application. But HKU is a great school too. Don't cry. Seeing my mother's reaction, so different from what I had expected, my tears only grew more. My mother hurriedly wiped my tears away, continuing to comfort me. It was for Julian. Wasn't it? It's okay. It's okay. Even if you're not in Beijing. It's alright. Stop crying or I'll get mad. While comforting me, my mother continued to pack up the stall. She said she'd check my school and major choices when we got home. I nodded through my sobs and quietly followed her back home. By the time we arrived home, it was already past 1 a.m. Yet there, standing outside the building, was a familiar tall figure. At this hour, Julian was actually here. My mother gave me a long look, leaving space for Julian and me to talk, before heading upstairs without a word. I didn't want to speak to Julian anymore, so I walked straight past him to go upstairs. As I passed him, I didn't notice, and he suddenly grabbed me and pulled me into his arms. I immediately started to struggle, but the strength difference was too much, and I was no match for him. Finally, having fulfilled way, he got angry, pressing me hard against the wall. He held me tightly, not allowing me to move. The faint scent of alcohol instantly surrounded me. I glared up at him, silently protesting, but saw that Julian was staring at me intently. He lowered his posture and spoke softly. Are you still upset? All right. All right. I apologize. This is all my fault. After my parents changed my application back to Peking University, they immediately changed my password, and I didn't have a chance to switch it back to be with you. At this point, he still thought that I should step aside for Luna to make her happy. I couldn't hold it in anymore and asked, then why didn't you tell me and let me change mine back to her? Is Luna so important to you? Is she worth sacrificing my future just to please her? Julian took a deep breath, starting to get impatient again. Why do you always have such a problem with Luna? No wonder she doesn't want to meet you in college. Every time you see her, you act like a porcupine, ready to attack. Even though I had reached the limit of my disappointment, the sadness in my heart still felt like needles pricking me. Sharp and relentless. The motion sensor light in the hallway had already gone off, and moonlight streamed through the building's glass door, casting shadows on Julian's face. The sharp lines of his face, which I had seen so many times before, now felt like someone I had never known. We stood there in silence, facing each other, neither of us saying a word. After a long time, Julian seemed to give up. His voice softened as he spoke, trying to placate me. All right. I give in. But please don't make a scene anymore. Okay? Be good. This is on me. You go study in Hong Kong. For years isn't that long. You can come back to Beijing after graduation, either for grad school or work. I'll help take care of Sandra. He rambled on, and seeing that I still wasn't saying anything, he couldn't help but laugh quietly. He pressed his face against my ear and, in a whisper, added, I know what you're worried about. I promise. No relationships in college. I'll wait for you for years. The words struck me like a thunderclap, instantly snapping my muddled brain back to reality. So it turns out, Julian knows everything. He knows about the feelings I've carefully hidden away. He knows about all the unspoken dreams I once had for the future. He even understands the meaning behind that drunken kiss. But despite all of this, he still chose to ignore how I felt. He took it for granted that I would always, unconditionally, love him. I stared at Julian in disbelief. Seeing my dazed silence, he pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. I snapped back to my senses, using all my strength to push him away. The hallway lights flickered back on. Perhaps he didn't expect such a strong reaction from me. And Julian stumbled slightly, his face a mix of embarrassment. Claire, why did you push me? You've been refusing to go to Hong Kong all this time because you're worried I'll be with someone else. So are you relieved now? I coldly retorted. Who cares who you're with? Be with whoever you want. Julian sighed. You've always been so stubborn. So what if you like me? I won't laugh at you. You don't need to be embarrassed. I immediately cut him off. Enough. Julian. I'm telling you clearly now I don't like you. And you don't need to wait for me. From now on, we don't need to stay in touch. I won't forgive someone who plays with my future. After saying that, I turned and walked past him, heading upstairs to my room. I didn't look back at Julian's expression, which had turned dark in an instant. Julian paused for a moment, then quickly followed me up the stairs. Claire. Don't talk like that. Who's playing with your future? Didn't I change my university choice to Hong Kong University for you? I can't help it if my family disagrees. Besides, Hong Kong University is a great school with plenty of opportunities for exchanges. I even explained it to you last night. I'm serious about this. So where's the harm in it? Are you saying I forced you to go to a vocational school or something? Julian's voice grew louder as he followed me up the stairs. The more he spoke, the more agitated he became. Finally, hadn't he grabbed my hand, stopping me from going further. Besides, your family's struggling. I've already promised to cover your living and tuition fees for the next 4 years. How many people would dream of this opportunity to study? How can you interpret it as me trying to ruin your life? I turned back in shock, jerking my hand out of his grip. Well, thank you for thinking so much about me. But from now on, my affairs have nothing to do with you. I finished my sentence and hurried upstairs, not glancing back. Behind me, Julian's disappointed voice echoed. Claire. I've humbled myself, apologized, and confessed my feelings. But you're still treating me like this? You want to keep fighting with me? Fine. Just don't regret it. I didn't respond. Julian didn't pursue me any further. He turned and quickly descended the stairs. His footsteps faded into the emptiness of the hallway. Julian had his pride too. The soft words he spoke just now were already his limit. But that still couldn't undo the harm he had caused me. I had already made up my mind not to forgive him. And I wouldn't accept his so-called help. I'd rather repeat a year than beg him. I never wanted to see the disdainful looks of Luna and her friends again. When I got home, Mom was still waiting for me. Surprisingly, Grandma hadn't gone to bed either. They were sitting quietly in the living room, and the atmosphere was oddly tense. When I came in, Mom immediately put on a smile and greeted me, while Grandma wheeled herself over. Claire, you're back. Mom just checked, and the major you picked at Hong Kong University is really good. There are plenty of scholarships available too. Just go ahead and study. Don't worry about a thing. As for living expenses, I've got it covered. The stall's been doing well recently. Grandma reached for my hand, smiling kindly as she reassured me. I'm feeling better now. Claire, you don't need to worry about us. Your focus should be on finishing your studies. I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt wash over me. For a moment of impulse, my entire family was now paying the price. Grandma. Mom. I've thought it over. I don't want to go this time. I think I'll repeat a year. And try for Peking University next year. I stammered out my decision. But the expressions on Mom's and Grandma's faces instantly changed. Mom gave me a sharp slap on the back and scolded. What are you talking about? You've been accepted to such a great university. How can you not go? Do you know how many generations of our family have sacrificed so much for this? You'll make everyone angry with your stubbornness. Stop overthinking it. The rest of the things are for us adults to solve. Mom continued to scold me while Grandma nodded in agreement. I felt so distressed. My tears threatened to fall again. And I rushed to my room, shutting the door behind me. I pulled out my phone and deleted all contact information for Julian and Luna. Then, let out a low sigh. I buried myself in my bed and cried my heart out. People have to pay for their own mistakes. I couldn't drag my family down. The costs of going to Hong Kong for an undergraduate degree were too high. Even with partial scholarships, the living expenses were still difficult to cover. With my current relationship with Julian, I could never accept his help. The next morning, at breakfast, I brought up my decision again. Mom slammed her bowl down in anger. Grandma's expression was serious as she tried to persuade me. I didn't want to argue with them anymore. I had already made up my mind. As long as I didn't go to Hong Kong, no one could force me to. I quietly skipped breakfast, turned, and walked out of the house. I wandered aimlessly on the street for a long time. I thought about a lot of things, and also did a lot of research. I even looked into the policies for repeating a year and the schools that offered it. I returned home just before evening. Unexpectedly, having fulfilled my obsession, there was an uninvited guest at the door. Margaret, Aunt Julian's mother. She was accompanied by an assistant dressed in a suit. Mom, who was preparing to head out to the stall, was just as surprised as I was to see her. They were college classmates, and at one point, best friends. They had even bought houses in the same neighborhood. Julian and I had grown up together because of this. But ever since Dad's business went bankrupt and we moved out of the villa area, they had stopped keeping in touch. Margaret entered the house, casually glancing around before sitting down and getting straight to the point. Sandra, how long has it been since we last saw each other? It's been so busy for everyone. I can see you're doing well. I heard Claire has been a good girl. Her grades are excellent. And she's going to Hong Kong University. I'm just going to say it. I'm here to give you some money. Living expenses for university in Hong Kong are expensive. And there's £100 and in this card. Claire can use it. She handed over a card to Mom. Both Mom and I exchanged surprised glances, not understanding what was going on. Margaret Aunt smiled and explained. Well, Julian woke up this morning and immediately asked his dad and me for money, saying he needed $1 million to help Claire go to Hong Kong University. My mind went blank. I felt utterly humiliated. My face flushing bright red. My mother's face, too, turned pale in an instant. Aunt Margaret's smile spread across her lips, but her eyes remained cold. She continued, adding, to be honest, our Julian family doesn't need $1 million. But nobody's wealth comes from thin air. And sponsoring some stranger to attend such an expensive university is not something anyone would do. That 100 yuan. Let's just consider it as repaying the favor Claire's father did for our family years ago. If it's not enough, then you'll have to figure out the rest yourselves. Julian is such a kind-hearted kid. He's been sulking all day, locking himself in his room, refusing to eat or drink, just to help Claire. My mother shot up suddenly, cutting her off. Margaret, take this card back. We'll handle Claire's matters ourselves. No need to trouble your family. With that, my mother shoved the bank card back into Aunt Margaret's hands and opened the door to show her out. Aunt Margaret didn't seem upset. In fact, she stood up gracefully, smiling. Sandra, you're still so stubborn. I told you to remarry for an easier life. But you didn't listen, insisting on running a street stall to make a measly income. Now, to save face, having fulfilled my obsession, you're willing to risk your child's future. Is that really necessary? My mother clenched her fists in anger, trying again to show her out. Aunt Margaret didn't say another word but smiled and walked out. Before leaving, she paused and gave me a meaningful glance. Claire, I'm only trying to help. If you don't want to accept it, fine. But do try to talk to Julian. Get him to stop arguing with his father over your issue. I was shaking with rage, replying in a low voice. Aunt, I never asked Julian for money. I don't even know why he did that. It has nothing to do with me. Aunt Margaret seemed surprised, her expression full of doubt. Oh? So you're quite something, aren't you? You know the situation at home and still managed to trick Julian into applying to a university in Hong Kong. Fortunately, someone told me he changed his application for you. His father and I immediately reversed it. Otherwise, we would have wasted his whole life. Our Julian's always been so pure-hearted. After your family fell on hard times and moved away, he still kept in touch with you like childhood friends. We never interfered. But, at this point, she patted my shoulder, her tone turning serious. However, the person he marries mustn't just be anyone. From any family. One must know their place. Don't you think, Claire? The anger and humiliation hit me like a tidal wave. I bit down hard on my teeth to steady myself. But my mother could no longer hold herself back. She raised her hand and was about to slap Aunt Margaret, but her tall assistant quickly stepped in and stopped her. Aunt Margaret's expression twisted into one of mockery. "Sandra, you've become quite the shrew. You really need to control your daughter and understand your own limitations. You're dreaming of something that's not meant for you." My mother yanked me towards her, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. "Mom." I stood behind the door, crying, feeling even more guilty. I never imagined things would escalate to this point. Dragging my mother into such humiliation. My mother exhaled deeply, hugged me, and comforted me for a long while. "It's okay, sweetie. Don't worry. I believe you're not like that. We don't need a single penny from their family. Let's not talk about it now. I'll go set up the stall. We'll talk later." I wiped my tears and nodded, ready to help her set up the stall. Back in my room, I noticed a note left on my desk, written by Grandma. "Claire, I'm feeling much better now and I'm thinking of returning to the countryside for a while. Please, don't repeat a year. You must go to college." My heart skipped a beat. I quickly grabbed the note and showed it to my mother. She was about to leave, but when she saw the note, her face turned anxious. She quickly dialed Grandma's number. But it kept ringing without being answered. I was equally frantic, not knowing what to do. "Your grandma is impossible. She told me to go downstairs to watch people dance. How could she go back to the countryside on her own with her bad legs? She's always saying she's a burden on us. Muttering about going back to her old house. But who would have thought she actually went? Does she really think she can't manage with her pension?" My mother couldn't leave, and instead hurried back to the bedroom, packing a couple of clothes. She was planning to go find Grandma. I quickly followed behind her. She sighed deeply but didn't say anything. She just grabbed me and took me to the high-speed rail station. Luckily, we caught the last train to the countryside. On the train, my mother didn't speak. She closed her eyes, exhausted. I stared out the window into the darkness, silently crying, my heart heavy. If I hadn't changed my application back then, Grandma wouldn't have felt like a burden and would never have left on her own. Suddenly, my phone buzzed a few times. A strange number sent a few messages. "Claire, I never thought you were this kind of person. You can be angry at me, but my mom was only trying to help by sending you the tuition fees. And your mom actually slapped her? Don't you think that's too much? She's crying really hard. You need to come over to apologize to her. If you don't, I'll make you regret it." I immediately recognized it was from Julian. But I was so tired, I didn't even have the energy to argue. I blocked his number without another thought, refusing to dwell on anything related to him. When we arrived at Grandma's house, it was already past midnight. Under the dim light of a yard lamp, Grandma was sitting alone in the living room, staring blankly. She was startled when she saw us and quickly wiped her tears before starting to scold us. My mother and I cried as well. That night, the three of us huddled together, crying for a long time. I was determined not to go to Hong Kong for college. But Grandma and my mother kept trying to persuade me. In the end, Grandma gave me an ultimatum. If I didn't go to college, she would refuse to live in Beijing with my mother. I had no choice but to temporarily agree, hoping to calm her down. The next day, my mother returned to Beijing, but Grandma refused to leave, wanting to stay in the countryside for a while. My mother had no choice but to leave me there to take care of Grandma, hoping it would help me clear my head. After all, there were many things in Beijing that troubled me. Life in the countryside was peaceful, and my mood improved considerably. A week later, I suddenly received a WeChat message from Chloe. She left a note saying I should completely let go and not leave any room for hope. She sent me a video from Luna's birthday party. In the luxurious villa's hall, Luna, dressed like a princess, was dancing with Julian in the center of the ballroom. Under the romantic waltz, people all around were praising the perfect couple. In the video, Luna and Julian only had eyes for each other. As the song ended, Luna stood on her toes and boldly kissed Julian on the lips. The crowd erupted in cheers, nearly shaking the roof. Julian was stunned for a moment but didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled. I turned off the video and couldn't bear to watch any longer. Even though I didn't like Luna, I couldn't help but think, they really do suit each other. They were from the same world. Even though I had already decided to give up on Julian, my heart still ached. I squeezed my palm tightly, hoping that if my body hurt, my heart might not feel the same. Pretending not to care, I cleaned the house from top to bottom, exhausting myself in the process. By late night, hunger crept in. I dug out a roasted sweet potato my grandma Emma had left in the stove for me. Sitting alone on the threshold of the living room, I ate it. I don't know how, but as I ate, the sweet potato began to taste salty. It wasn't pleasant at all. I hadn't stayed in the countryside for long. And soon, my Madalo Sai, Grandma urged me to return to Beijing. I wanted to work and earn tuition money. So I hurried back to Beijing with her. The following days passed by like a clockwork routine, methodical, but swift. Part-time work. Waiting for the admission results. Helping Mom with the stall. Every day was filled with so much to do that I had no time to think about anything else. I even skipped the school's recognition ceremony for top students. I muted the class group chat. I forced myself not to think about the unhappy people and events. Occasionally, I received strange text messages, but I deleted them without a second thought. When the admission letter arrived, Grandma and Mom cried for a long time. I didn't dare to mention not going to school anymore. The last time Grandma was home, she secretly sold our old house. The money wasn't much, but she gave it all to me for my university tuition. But I still couldn't shake the worry about them being alone in Beijing. Mom noticed and made a bold decision. She canceled the subsidized housing and moved our whole family to Shenzhen. Now they would be closer to me, and we could reunite on holidays. I had no more worries, and happily focused on getting ready for the school report and the move. By the time everything was settled and we moved to Shenzhen, on the day we were about to board the plane, I unexpectedly received a call from an unfamiliar number. When the voice on the other end spoke, I immediately recognized it was Julian. Claire, you've been quiet for so long. I'm sure you've had time to think it through, right? You didn't come to the graduation banquet. And you skipped the class reunions. I've been abroad and came back. And you're still holding a grudge? It had been over a month since I'd heard from him. I didn't expect him to call. And for a moment, I forgot to hang up. He sighed helplessly on the other end of the line and continued. All right. I heard from the homeroom teacher that you've confirmed your enrollment at Hong Kong University. So I'm relieved. Although you turned down the money from my mom last time. Please don't punish yourself out of spite. Living expenses there are high. So I prepared 500. Zero for you. The card is in your family's mailbox. And the password is your birthday. I know you don't want to see me. But make sure you pick it up. We're starting school soon. And I'll visit you in Hong Kong during the National Day holiday. For years go by quickly. Don't worry. I'll keep my promise. I didn't answer him. I didn't tell him that we had already moved. That address was no longer valid. I threw away the old SIM card and replaced it with a new one. The old phone was done for. Maybe youth is like this one-way plane ticket. From now on, I had no intention of ever returning to Beijing. After settling Grandma and Mom, I went to Hong Kong University for registration without a second thought. The weather in Guangdong was a bit hot, but the winters were mild, and it was more suitable for Grandma. Mom had started a new stall business here, and the vibrant city life had already brought in much more business than in Beijing. My life at university gradually settled into a rhythm. At first, I couldn't understand much, but little by little, I was able to speak a few sentences in Cantonese. The coursework was demanding, and I spent a lot of time adjusting to the pace. During my spare time, aside from visiting Grandma in Shenzhen, I worked part-time to make money. I was so busy I didn't have time for anything else. By the time I caught my breath, it was almost National Day. Suddenly, I remembered the phone call at the airport when I left Beijing. And I turned around to see Julian standing right there at the entrance of the campus. He was still that refreshing young man, though a bit more mature. It felt like we hadn't seen each other for long. But somehow, it felt like an eternity. I realized, for the first time in a while, I hadn't thought about him at all. I was still frozen in place when Julian took a few steps forward and stood in front of me. Claire. The joy in his eyes was unmistakable. His lips curving into a smile. I've been waiting for you for so long. I finally ran into you. You changed your number. I couldn't find you anywhere. I had to ask around to get your whereabouts. I nodded and replied inferently. Do you need something? Seeing me respond, Julian sighed in relief and cautiously probed. I promised I'd visit you during National Day. Did you forget? I see you're doing well here. Looks like you made the right choice. So, how about having a meal together? I shook my head. I have class. I'm not going. Julian looked disappointed. Hey. Are you still angry? I apologized. And I've sent the money. But you're still upset. I really don't know what else to do. What do you want from me to forgive me? Oh, but, right. Luna asked me to bring you a gift to apologize. I looked at the Hermes scarf he was offering but didn't take it. I didn't call him out on his lie. Not far from where he was standing, behind a tree, I saw a girl with sunglasses and a straw hat. If I wasn't mistaken, it was Luna herself. They were clearly together on holiday in Hong Kong. So while I didn't say he came to see me, I refused him and turned to leave. Julian stepped forward and grabbed my arm. Claire. Don't take our childhood friendship for granted. Even the deepest feelings can wear out. And when that happens, don't come crying to me. I nodded in agreement. Suit yourself. Julian, queen.I, furious, shouted. Fine, unforgettable. You're right. If you're so determined, then never come back to Beijing. Never look for me again. I nodded again and left without a second glance. Let him do whatever he wanted. But in this big data age, it wasn't so easy to escape. For the next few days, I kept seeing Luna's posts on social media. In front of the Disney Castle fireworks. On the cable car at Ocean Park. At a concert in Hun Hom Stadium. And from the windows of a 5-star hotel overlooking Victoria Harbor. Each photo was of Julian and Luna together. Even though Julian's face was blurred with a cartoon filter, I recognized him instantly. I couldn't help myself and browsed through Luna's social media. Luna projected the image of a well-educated beauty from Peking University. And her comment section was full of praises for rich girls and handsome boys. She and Julian were indeed the stars of Peking University's freshman class. Even classmates I wasn't close to would occasionally try to subtly inquire about Julian. Looking at those photos of Luna and Julian by the Wyoming Lake, I felt a pang of regret. These were the very things I had once dreamed of my ideal college life. But when I looked outside the lecture hall at the lush green trees, my mood lightened a little. Perhaps it's natural to want to peek into others' lives. But to avoid seeing more of her posts, I deleted the social media app. No more wasting time on them. I regained my peace. During the winter break, I celebrated the first New Year with Grandma and Mom in Shenzhen. Wherever they were, that was where home was. Although the rental apartment wasn't big, we were living quite happily. On New Year's Eve, I received a call from Julian. I wasn't sure who he had asked, or how many times he had called, but he managed to get my contact information. Claire. Didn't you come back to Beijing for the New Year? I went to your house to find you, but the lights were off. Did you go back to your hometown? Yeah. I answered casually, hearing little emotion in his voice. Oh, so will you be back in Beijing before school starts? Julian asked cautiously. I probably won't. I replied. About the 500 yuan. I saw you haven't touched it. How are you covering your tuition? I'm going to spend the new year with my grandma. I didn't answer his question. There was a hint of regret on the other end of the line. Okay. Then. I'll come see you in Hong Kong when school starts next year. I hesitated for a moment. Then decided to speak my mind. Actually, having so still why I'm so sure. You don't have to. We're just ordinary classmates. No need for you to visit. Julian immediately denied it. Claire. You're not still angry. Are you? We've been through so much together. You really don't want me anymore? I responded firmly. From the moment you chose to deceive me for someone else, I stopped considering you a friend. Please don't contact me again. It's really disrupting my life. Julian grew desperate. No, Claire. You've got it wrong. You're just studying out of town. You're not settling there permanently. You promised me you'd come back after graduation. I promised I'd wait for you in Beijing. You can't change your mind and leave me hanging. My head ached. But I still tried to explain patiently, wanting to make it clear once and for all. First, I never promised you anything about whether I'd return or not. Second, where I go after graduation, or whether I come back to Beijing, has nothing to do with you. I really don't have the patience for this anymore. Don't contact me again. Julian refused to give up, stubbornly holding on. That's impossible. Your family's here. I don't believe you'll never come back. No matter what. I'll wait for you here. And I won't be with anyone else. When you come back, we'll get married. I didn't want to argue anymore. So I hung up the phone, deciding that the next time I heard his voice, I would immediately hang up. Let him think whatever he wanted. If it weren't for a few classmates mentioning Julian and Luna during their visit to Hong Kong, I would have almost believed what he said. His so-called waiting for me in Beijing hadn't stopped him from flirting with Luna. Their relationship, somewhere between friendship and romance, was more intoxicating than a bland, sweet love. 3 people in one relationship was too much. I didn't want to be the balancing weight. I watched as he played the role of the fair mediator, unaware of how messy it all really was. The days passed quietly without any waves. I thought that by ignoring Julian, he would eventually forget me. But I didn't expect him to keep trying. The first year passed, and I successfully secured a larger scholarship and earned enough from part-time jobs to cover my living expenses. Julian came to Hong Kong to visit me during the summer, saw that I was doing well, and felt both happy and a little sad. The second year passed. My mom made a fair amount of money in Shenzhen and, encouraged by me, had a second chance at life. Julian attempted to visit me during the winter vacation, even found grandma's old house, only to learn that we had sold it. In the third year, I was fortunate enough to get an exchange opportunity to study in France, where I saw a broader world. I heard Julian came to Hong Kong to look for me, then flew to France. But we missed each other several times. In the fourth year, I graduated smoothly. Instead of pursuing further studies, I found a decent job in Shenzhen. Julian came to the school to attend the graduation ceremony, bringing with him a large bouquet of roses. But when he saw a better-looking guy standing beside me, holding an even larger bouquet, he actually started tearing up. Then, let out a low sigh. He realized that not only had I signed a work contract in Shenzhen, but my whole family had moved here, and there was no way I could return to Beijing. That was when he finally gave up. I heard that after returning to Beijing, he hastily decided to study abroad. No matter how his mother tried to persuade him, he refused to return to the country to develop his career. His mother even called my mom, asking her to convince him to come back, saying the family business needed him to take over. My mom, of course, ignored her, scolded her, and blocked her number. As for Luna, she got into Peking University with extra points for art but failed many courses and only received a certificate of attendance when she graduated. She followed Julian abroad, tail between her legs. Julian's family began to resent Luna for not getting a degree and forbade them from being together. So in the end, I stopped caring about how it all turned out. Life is long, and who can guarantee they won't make mistakes? The regrets of youth eventually became the motivation that pushed me forward. So, even if I made the wrong choice in life, there was still a chance for a comeback. Never give up easily. The end. I ran into my supposedly impotent husband of 8 years in the hospital corridor. He was holding a pregnant woman in his arms, kissing her swollen belly tenderly. His eyes filled with a depth of affection I had never seen before. Then I heard the woman's teasing voice. "You've kept yourself pure for me for 8 years. You've worked so hard." In that instant, everything became clear. 8 years of marriage, not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't. 10 years of love. 8 years of marriage. And all Sean ever left me was the sight of his back as he turned away. Even in our 2-meter-wide bed, he always slept on the very edge. On our wedding night, I had waited for him shyly in a white silk nightdress, filled with anticipation. He came out of the shower, droplets glistening on his hair, carrying the clean, fresh scent of body wash. "You look beautiful," he said softly, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Wendy. I'm too tired tonight. Let's rest early. Okay?" But that too tired stretched on for 8 long years. At first, I blamed myself. Was my body not good enough? Was my skin not smooth enough? I even secretly bought lingerie. When I finally gathered the courage to wear that black lace nightdress and wrap my arms around him from behind, his body went rigid in an instant. The next second, he turned around, pulled the blanket over me tightly, his voice trembling with guilt. "Wendy. I'm sorry." Tears slid down his face, soaking the pillow. At that moment, all my frustration melted into pity. From then on, I never mentioned intimacy again. I tiptoed around his pride, guarding his dignity as a man. I read up on medical journals in secret, brewed herbal tonics, and coaxed him to drink them with a smile. He never refused, always finished every drop, then patted my head gently and said, "Wendy, you're so good to me." Aside from that, he was the perfect husband. He remembered to pick food for me, peeled shrimp for me, listened attentively when I spoke as if I were his entire world. At gatherings, he would wrap his arm naturally around my waist and introduce me proudly. "This is my wife, Wendy." That tone of pride made every woman at the table look at me with envy. Everyone said I had married well, that I had married for love. And for the longest time, I believed it too. Until today. "Wendy. It's your turn." The nurse's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I took a deep breath and stepped into the consultation room. Lately, I'd been feeling unusually fatigued. After a series of tests, the doctor told me to wait for the report at the end of the corridor. That was when I saw Sean. He hadn't noticed me. He was walking quickly, having fulfilled my obsession. Looking nervous. Almost panicked. Why was he here? Was he sick? Why didn't he tell me? Questions tumbled through my mind as I followed him instinctively. He stopped at the far end of the corridor where a woman stood. She wore a loose maternity dress. Her belly was visibly round. I couldn't see her face, but she was young. My heart sank. Then Sean strode forward and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head, his hand caressing her belly with a tenderness I had never once received. I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth to stifle the scream clawing at my throat. The woman pouted playfully. "Finally. I've been waiting forever." She laughed softly, and added, "You've kept yourself chaste for me for 8 years. Thank you for your sacrifice. Now that we have our baby, you don't have to pretend with that old wife of yours anymore." Chaste for 8 years? Pretend with me? My mind went blank. I could barely breathe. Then Sean kissed her forehead, his voice laced with warmth and devotion. "Silly girl. For you and for our child it's all worth it." My knees buckled. I slid down the cold wall, the weight of the truth crushing me. He wasn't impotent. He just wasn't impotent with me. He hadn't been sick, he had been saving himself for his first love. I don't remember how I got home. Barefoot, I stepped onto the icy floor, my stomach churning violently. In our bedroom, I tried to tidy the mess on the bed, but a phone slipped out from Sean's jacket pocket. A click and the screen unlocked. My heart skipped a beat. I never knew he had a second phone. I opened the photo album. Dozens of pictures spilled out. The earliest was from his college graduation ceremony. Sean in his cap and gown, holding a girl in his arms. Both were smiling, young and radiant. The girl was his junior, Chloe. That day, I had asked Sean to take a graduation photo with me. He said he was too busy, he had to give a speech as the valedictorian. The photos continued, arranged chronologically from 8 years ago, all the way to yesterday. Photos of them traveling through different cities, snow mountains, oceans, ancient towns. All the places he told me he had gone on business trips. There were birthday photos to Chloe wearing a cute party hat, snuggled in his arms. The table before them filled with cake and candles. The most recent photo was taken yesterday at the hospital's obstetrics department. Chloe leaned happily against Sean's shoulder, holding a prenatal report in her hand. Sean was kissing her forehead, his expression glowing with a joy I had never seen, the joy of a soon-to-be father. Below the photo was a short video. Chloe. Sean said. Today marks 10 years since we've been together and 8 years since I married that woman. I know it's been hard for you. Just a little longer. Once I gain full control of the company and secure all of Wendy's family's resources, I'll divorce her and marry you properly. These 8 years, I haven't touched her not once. My body, my everything, belongs only to you. When our baby is born, I'll make sure she leaves with nothing. The video was less than a minute long. Yet I watched it over and over 10 times. 20 times. Until every word, every look, every cruel syllable carved itself into my bones. So that was it. I, Wendy, and everything my family owned, had been nothing but his grand, deliberate scheme from the very beginning. A stepping stone that helped him gain business resources. A tool to take care of his parents and hide the truth. A footstool to pave the future for him and the woman he loved. I forced my trembling hands to steady as I picked up my phone and carefully backed everything up to the cloud. When it was done, I suddenly laughed. The laugh swelled and grew until it turned into hysterical cackling, and hot tears streamed down my cheeks. Sean, you wanted me out with nothing, didn't you? You wanted to clear every obstacle for the woman and child you love? Well, I refuse to let you have your wish. I will make you fall from grace. I will strip you of everything. The next morning, I made his breakfast like always and gave him a goodbye kiss as he left. No sooner had he gone than I dug an old, long and used phone out of a storage box under the bed and slipped in a new SIM card. Then I dialed a number. On the other end was the country's top divorce lawyer. Lawyer Zhang. Well, it's me, Wendy. My demands are simple, I told him. Divorce. Sean walks away empty-handed. And he must be ruined. After I hung up, I moved on to the second item on my list. The tiny recording device I'd ordered online arrived yesterday. I carried it into Sean's study and took in the room with a slow, careful gaze. The rosewood shelves were lined with professional tomes, and his trophies and certificates glittered on display. Most prominent was a framed photograph of him standing with my parents and his own. It was taken after our marriage, when he merged the two companies and launched the new firm. Everyone in the picture wore broad smiles. My father's hand rested proudly on his shoulder. My father had treated him as his own, handing over the Wendy family's most important resources and connections without reservation. And what did he do in return? He wanted to drain the Wendy family dry and then kick us all out. I stuck the button-sized recorder under his desk, hiding it with careful fingers. When that was done, I went about the rest of my morning as usual, tidying the rooms, laundering the clothes, and heading out to the supermarket to buy groceries for dinner. He played the part of the perfect husband. I would play the part of the perfect wife, gentle, attentive, understanding. That afternoon my mother-in-law called. Her voice was thick with bragging. Wendy, are you free this Saturday? Your father and I are planning a family dinner at the Grand Hyatt. You don't know our Sean is doing so well. He's just closed a big deal and the company is going public soon. This is an honor for the whole family. As his wife, you must dress up nicely. Don't embarrass the Sean family. My knuckles whitened around the phone. I answered in a syrup-sweet voice, of course. Mother. I understand. I'll prepare properly. A family dinner, what a stage. Sean. I'll make sure you fall into the deepest mire when you're at your most glorious. That night Sean was in the study handling documents. I timed it and brought him a cup of hot milk. The study door was ajar. As I reached the threshold, I heard his voice deliberately lowered inside. It was Chloe. I froze, pressed myself to the wall, and hit the record button on my phone. Baby, an low sigh. Don't be mad. I had no choice. Wendy still has use to her family. Those old resources only answered to her, not me. At a crucial moment, like an IPO, we can't have any trouble. I promise you, once the company is stable, I'll force the issue with her. For our future we must endure. When the time comes, I'll make her disappear without a trace. How could I let her take a single cent? My money, everything, is for us and the baby. Be good and wait for me. After Saturday's banquet I'll come to you. I leaned against the wall and as he spoke those words soft and loving on the surface. Butcher knife cruel in meaning and my chest tight and until I could barely breathe. When the recording ended I drew a deep breath, composed my face, and pushed the door open. Husband. Have some milk and dressed early. Sean hung up, turned, and his expression betrayed nothing. He took the cup and, as if nothing were amiss, drew me into his arms. Thanks for your hard work, wife. He bent to kiss my forehead casually and affectionately. Wendy. You must dress beautifully for the party. You're the pride of the Sean family. Pride or no pride. It's just what I should do. Isn't it? I looked up at him. My eyes held the right measure of admiration. Any more would be false. Any less would be suspicious. I left the study and returned to the bedroom. But I didn't lie down. Instead I sat at the dressing table and listened to the house. Water began to run in the bathroom. Now, I slipped my slippers off, bare feet silent, and returned to the study. The computer screen still glowed. My eyes landed on an encrypted folder in the lower right corner of the desktop, a folder I'd noticed before. Sean was cautious. He never used the home computer for his most secret business. Convinced I didn't know the password. My fingers hovered over the keyboard and then typed. The password was Chloe's due date plus the initials of her and the baby. He had bragged on the phone, gloating over the unique birth gift he'd given the baby. How ironic. The folder opened. There were only 3 files inside. 2 were project proposals. The last file's name made my vision sting. Accident plan. Bad premonition rose sickly in my throat as I opened it. The title read, Contingency Plan for Wendy's Aftermath. This was no mere will. It was worse, it was a murder plan drafted to fit me. It detailed numerous methods to make my death look like an accident, how to sabotage the brakes on a car to stage a traffic accident, how to arrange a slip and drowning at the rural resort I loved to visit, even turning the staircase in our villa into a staged accidental fall that would ensure I vanished from this world. Each scenario came with meticulous notes on feasibility, risk assessment, and ways to evade legal culpability. He wrote with the calm, clinical thoroughness of someone planning a business project, not the cold-blooded plotting of a man arranging the death of the woman who slept beside him. The final section of the document detailed the disposition of assets. After my unexpected death, all the assets under my name would be classified as joint marital property and would, of course, pass to him. He would mourn my passing for a while, and then transfer everything to Chloe and their child. He had specifically marked that the best time to execute this plan was after the company went public. Because by then, the Wendy family's resources would have lost all their value, and he would have everything for himself. I stared at every word on the screen, a chill running from my fingertips straight to my heart. So, when he said, make her disappear without a trace, this was what he meant. I thought I had already seen through his indifference. But it turned out that his malice went far beyond what I had imagined. The sound of water from the bathroom stopped. By the time Sean came out, towel drying his hair, I had already changed into my pajamas and was leaning against the bed, reading. Why are you still up? He asked. I was waiting for you. I closed the book and gave him a gentle smile, as though nothing had happened earlier. He lay beside me and quickly fell into a steady rhythm of breathing. I turned on my side and quietly watched his sleeping profile. This face I had loved for 10 whole years. But now, all I felt was disgust. The family banquet was held as scheduled on Saturday. The clinking of glasses, the sweet scent of champagne, and the fragrance of high-end perfumes filled the air. Sean was the center of attention. The news of the company's impending public listing had already spread through the circles. He wore a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, his hair neatly combed, holding a wine glass as he skillfully navigated through the crowd, receiving compliments and congratulations from relatives and friends. President Sean is truly a young talent. Yes. And now the company is going public. We'll all be relying on you in the future. Sean's father, Dylan, Wanhs, was beaming with pride, clapping his son's shoulder. His mother, Una, could hardly stop smiling, bragging about her excellent son to everyone. I stood on the second-floor balcony, silently watching the false hustle and bustle below. My gaze moved over the crowd and landed on an inconspicuous corner. there stood Chloe. She had changed out of her usual bold attire, now wearing a light blue dress. With subtle makeup trying to make herself look soft and harmless. But her eyes never left Sean. When their eyes met, they exchanged a knowing smile. In that smile was reassurance, promises, and a hint of smugness about their future. They truly were a perfect couple. I looked away and turned to head downstairs. Sean walked over and naturally wrapped his arm around my waist, his touch affectionate. "Why so plain?" he asked. "Why didn't you wear that champagne-colored lawn dress?" "I thought it was just a family dinner, so I kept it simple. Didn't want to steal your spotlight." He took my hand and led me to the center of the banquet hall, picked up the microphone, and cleared his throat. "Good evening, everyone." His voice echoed through the sound system, and all eyes turned toward him. "Today, I invited everyone here not only to celebrate our company's upcoming IPO, but also to take this opportunity to thank a few people." He paused, his eyes looking at me with deep affection. "First, I want to thank my wife, Wendy. For the past 8 years, she has been silently supporting me from behind, taking care of me, and giving me a warm home. Wendy, thank you." His words were so sincere that it seemed as though we truly were a loving couple. The applause was deafening. I took the microphone from his hand. "Your words have really moved me, dear." I turned to the crowd, smiling brightly. "To celebrate this special day and to thank my husband for all his hard work over the years, I have prepared a gift, something I want to give him and share with all of you to spread our joy." At this moment, Sean was still lost in his perfect role, unaware of what was about to happen. I connected my phone to the huge projection screen in the center of the banquet hall. The screen lit up, and everyone turned their attention to it. The next second, a video started playing. The scene showed Sean and Chloe in a cozy apartment. Sean was in casual clothes, gently feeding fruit to Chloe, who was sitting on the couch. In the video, Sean's gaze at Chloe was filled with affection and tenderness. He wiped the juice from her lips, ran his fingers through her long hair, and finally leaned down to kiss her lips. The entire banquet hall went dead silent in an instant. Sean froze, unable to utter a word. His parents' smiles turned to stone, their faces full of shock and embarrassment. In the corner, Chloe turned pale, instinctively trying to hide behind the crowd. The video continued. The scene changed to a shopping mall where Sean was with Chloe, picking out baby items. They were both laughing sweetly and dreamily, gazing at a pair of tiny baby shoes. I turned off the video, and the lights in the hall returned to normal, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. I held the microphone, scanning the room before locking eyes with Sean, whose face had turned as white as a sheet. Everyone is probably wondering, who is the lady in the video? I raised my hand and pointed directly at the slender figure that was trying to slip away. "This lady is Chloe, my husband's lover." Yep, that's her. Miss Chloe, in the blue dress." All eyes turned toward her. Chloe's body trembled, and she had nowhere to hide. "Oh, and by the way," I lifted a document in my hand. A prenatal checkup report. I had circled her name and the number of weeks pregnant with a red pen. "Miss Chloe is 12 weeks pregnant, and the father of the child is my husband, Sean." The room erupted in gasps. "Sean." Dylan finally reacted, pointing at his son and shouting furiously. Yuna's face had turned as white as paper. She stared at me, her lips trembling, unable to believe what she was hearing. Sean snapped back to reality. He grabbed my wrist with such force that I thought he would break it. "Wendy, you're crazy. What are you doing?" I yanked my arm out of his grip and coldly stared at him. "What am I doing?" I spoke into the microphone, each word clear and deliberate. "I just want everyone to know that my husband has been hiding his mistress. And now they have a child together. Yet he still plays the devoted husband in front of everyone. No, that's not true." Sean stammered, his panic growing. "Everyone, don't listen to her." He lunged to grab the microphone from my hand. I stepped back, evading him. "You must also be wondering why, after 8 years of marriage, we still don't have children. That's because Sean told me he couldn't." That one sentence hit like a bomb. His face shifted from white to red, then to an ashen blue, as if he'd walked through a dyer's vat. Wendy. Shut up, he roared. I ignored him and pressed play on my phone. On the recording, I heard my own voice, choking with tears. Sean. Why can't we be like a normal couple? Is it something I did wrong? Wendy. It's not your fault. It's me. I'm the one who failed you. I'm sorry. Gnawing clatter. A champagne glass at Yuna's elbow slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She sagged as if all her strength had been drained. Dylan lunged and caught her before she hit the ground. What a sin. What a crime. Yuna finally broke, covering her face and sobbing. Dylan's face had gone from pale to iron black. He raised his hand. His arm trembled violently. Then he struck Sean a slap that landed with bone-deep force. Dylan shook with fury, jabbing a finger at him. You've ruined the reputation of the Sean family today. Sean clutched his face, his eyes bloodshot, staring at me like a cornered animal. Wendy. You forged that recording. You lunatic. He snarled, making one last desperate push. Don't believe her, she's jealous because Chloe is carrying my child. She can't have one herself, so she's trying to destroy us all. Nobody believed him. If anything, his words only drew deeper contempt from the guests. To pin his affair and fathering a child on the woman he had deceived for 8 years, how shameless must one be? I didn't bother to refute him. I simply watched him perform. From a corner, Chloe tried to slip out through the side door while everyone's attention was fixed on Sean. Too bad my security had already been briefed. A guard stood in her path. Chloe. The banquet isn't over. Where are you going? One of the men said. Expressionless. Chloe's legs went weak. She nearly collapsed. I am not feeling well. I'd like to leave, she said, voice quavering. I lifted the microphone. Chloe, how did you feel outside? Don't rush off. Tonight's play you're the lead. It would be inappropriate for the leading lady to leave early. My words froze Chloe in place. She glanced at Sean, silently begging for help. But Sean was sinking. He couldn't save her. Sean. Let's get a divorce. I enunciated each word clearly. Sean shot upright, astonishment and panic flaring across his face. He must have thought this spectacle was only to vent, to humiliate him and Chloe. He never imagined I would actually file for divorce. In his mind I loved him down to the dust. How could I ever lead him? Divorce? He erupted. Wendy. Don't even think it. I will not divorce you. You won't get to choose. I smiled, cool and light, and pulled the last piece of paper from my purse, a pre-drafted divorce agreement. Under the prenuptial agreement, all our marital assets are community property. I demand a fair division including all properties, stocks, and funds registered in your name. And, I paused and turned my gaze toward Chloe, including the villa you purchased in the West District for Miss Chloe using our conjugal assets, and the secret trust fund of $5 million established in her name. The color drained from Sean's face completely. He stumbled back as if he'd seen a ghost, staring at me as though I'd torn the land from under him. The secret assets he'd buried so deep that not even his parents knew I knew them intimately. You. How could you? He pointed at me, lips trembling, words failing him. I stepped to where Sean had collapsed and crouched so only he could hear me. Sean. Do you think this is the end? I leaned close. My voice lowered even further. Every eye in the banquet hall was fixed on me. Their expressions were mixed pity, scorn, a thrill at the spectacle. Dylan and Yuna had been crushed by the blow. I didn't look at them again. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. The call was answered almost immediately. Wendy, said a steady male voice. Will, it's done, I said calmly. Good. The line clicked dead. Within a minute the banquet hall doors were thrown open. At the head of the entrance strode a middle-aged man in a dark suit and wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Dylan. Mrs. Yuna, adding fulfilled my exertion. Mr. Sean. Will's voice carried cleanly to every ear. Acting under the full power of my client. Ms. Wendy. I hereby present a petition for divorce to Mr. Sean. This is the divorce agreement and the accompanying list of asset divisions for your review. He placed the documents on the table. Sean, provoked by the move, scrambled to his feet, roaring, "I won't divorce. Dylan. Whether he divorces or not is no longer up to you." Will paused, then drew another paper from his briefcase. "We have conclusive evidence that you repeatedly abused your position to embezzle funds from the Sean family group to purchase a villa worth $30 million in the West District for Miss Chloe, and to establish a secret trust of $5 million in her name. This is no longer merely a matter of dividing marital property." Will said. Cold. "Mr. Sean, your conduct constitutes embezzlement. We have compiled all the evidence and submitted it to the relevant authorities. You can expect action soon." At that moment the banquet hall doors were flung open again. This time, what streamed in was not lawyers but a flood of journalists. Cameras and microphones bobbing like a swarm. "Mr. Dylan, is the recording true? Did you deceive Wendy for 8 years? Mr. Sean, is it true you embezzled funds to buy a house for your mistress? Miss Chloe, when did you start seeing Mr. Sean? Did you know he was married?" The barrage of sharp questions left the overwhelmed Sean reeling, blinded by flashbulbs. He tried to flee but was swallowed by reporters. I had pulled him from the clouds and shoved him straight into the foulest mire. Amid the cacophony, several uniformed officers parted the crowd and stepped forward. "We've received reports alleging Mr. Sean's involvement in large-scale embezzlement and money laundering. He needs to come